Hi everyone. Today is Wednesday, October the 27th, 2021. And today I would like to talk about astrology and specifically, on some of the astrological outlook video that I'd made a few weeks back about sort of what's happening from now to the year 2026. I wanted to give that a little bit more more detail and more background because I was not very specific in that video, and I had simply spoken of certain planets getting together without being very specific on the dates and the very objective meaning behind certain planets. So I took a moment to just write down all of the planets and the exact conjunction dates here, because some of them begin as early as 2008 and they go on to 2026, and this sort of and that's why the whole 2026 is so important. And that's where sort of the GFC, what does GFC stand for? Global Financial Crisis, the 2008 mortgage collapse, if you want to call it that, was in fact the start of this sort of unwinding and fourth turning. Okay, and now why did I think about making this? So I was, my middle son actually asked me this question last night. He said, "Mom, why do you think that, like, why do you say that planets, that this planet is here and there and whatever, and, what makes you think that planets make these things happen?" And I told him, no, it's not that planets make these things happen necessarily. It's just that planets, when they move in, every planet has their own energy, and then the way they interact with other planets causes a different type of energy, and that energy interacts with our energy, because ultimately that's what it's all about. It's all about the energies and the interaction of those energies. So, and it'll make more sense as I go through this. I'm going to start off with the slow planets first of all. Now, sort of in order of the fastest cycle to the slowest cycle, it's the moon, which is 2.5 days. Why I say 2.5 days? 2.5 days in each sign. The sun, which is about 30 days in each sign. Mercury, so here's a funny thing. Mercury, Venus, and Mars, they're all kind of sort of 6 to 9 weeks-ish in each sign. Mercury does a retrograde every now and then. Mars, in the year 2020, it was in the same sign. It was in Aries for like 6 or 7 months of the year, all the way till January 6th, 2021, which is why January 6th, 2021 was a very, very important day, because Mars was moving out of its home in Aries to Taurus, where it doesn't go so well. And I don't have to say much more about what happened on January 6th, 2021. In any case, so they kind of all go like that in 2.5 days, 1 month, 6 weeks. Then we get to the bigger planets. Now, Jupiter changes approximately once a year, roughly. Saturn is about 2.5 to 3 years, because Saturn's total cycle is 27 years for all 12 planets, and that 27 is quite steady, but the 2.5 or 3 years in between, that kind of varies. The next one, Jupiter 1 year, Saturn 2.5, 3 years. Now we get to the ones that are a little bit more steady. and stay in a planet for a long time, and I think define these kind of fourth turning generational shift sort of things. So Uranus, and I know I pronounce Uranus, and I pronounce Uranus like an Indian, but then my kids keep make fun of me, and then I'm like, all right, how do Americans say it? And I go, Uranus, Uranus, fine, Uranus. Uh, okay, so Uranus moves every 7 years. That's very important, because Uranus was in Aries from 2011 to 2018, and then why do I say Aries? It matters because Aries is the first sign of the zodiac. It's the new beginning sort of thing, and that Uranus in Aries was 2011 to 2018, and then from it's been in Taurus. Uranus is in Taurus from 2018 to 2026, and again I keep coming back, a lot of confluence to this 2026 year. So when Uranus is in Taurus, it really matters what these other planets, the bigger planets, are doing, which is why when I start the actual lineup, I'm going to start backwards from the longest cycle one coming forward. So Uranus in Taurus 2018 to 2026. Then the next one further out is Neptune. Neptune has, I think, 168 or something year cycle, so about 14 years in each sign. Neptune was in Pisces. Now remember, Pisces is the last sign of the zodiac. So again, the new sign, well, let me get to this one. Neptune in Pisces is from 2012 to 2026. That's important again, because it's again from 2012 to 2026. And Neptune is in Aries, again, new beginning sign, from 26 onwards. So you see how a lot of these new beginning things. Okay. And lastly, and most importantly, Pluto. Pluto has been in Capricorn from the year 2008, and it will remain till Jan 21st, 2024, and then from Feb 24 onwards, Pluto enters in Aquarius. One important thing to note is that in the year 2026, both Neptune and Saturn, they both enter Aries. So that's pretty crucial, because those things happened in the 1856, 1860s. I think that was the Civil War time. So that there's a lot of that confluence during that time. Okay, so now let's look at it backwards. Okay, so from Pluto, the slowest moving sign, onwards, because that's where the generational things come in. So I like to listen to this lady by the name of Lynette Zhang. She, I think she's precious metals dealer, right? On ITM Trading is her company, and she talks a lot about the economy and the over financialization of the system, etc. And she says this one sentence that actually struck me and made me really think about Pluto, because yesterday I listened to a talk or an interview that she did with this incredible guy who's in fintech in London, and it was a great interview. I highly recommend. What's his name? Baker Burton. I wrote down his name because I want to read his book. I'll probably leave it in the description. But anyways, so she interviewed this guy, and she said something about the system died in 2008, and then I was like, you know what, Pluto is the god of death, basically. But it's not like death. It's more of like a regeneration, transformation, creative destruction, that sort of thing. That's really what Pluto is. So I was like, wait a second. She keeps saying this, and somehow, like, I had this eureka moment, and I was like, what? When did Pluto and like when did Pluto come about? I know Pluto is in Capricorn right now, and it was responsible for a lot of this planet parade that happened because Saturn and Jupiter, they all kind of, so with the whole COVID thing, right? All that was a lot of Saturn, Jupiter, Mars, all these things kind of, and Aquarius, not Aquarius, and Uranus, lining up in this really disharmonious way, starting from about November 2019, going, peaking sort of in the December 2020, Jan 21, and even now it's not that great. So I was curious, and then I went and looked it up, and of course, Pluto entered Capricorn in 2008, and it'll keep remaining in Capricorn till the year 2021. Now that's really important because, so on the one hand, it matters where your where Capricorn is for you in your birth chart, because when you make a birth chart, when you make your own birth chart, it's very easy to go, and find out where a planet is. You just put in your dates, and it'll tell you your chart, like what planet was where. The important thing though, as your starting point, is your ascendant sign, and that changes sort of like the moon changes every 2.5 days. Your ascendant sign changes every 2 hours, and that's why it's very important to know what your ascendant sign is, because your ascendant sign dictates your first house, and then from that point, so suppose let's make an assumption that my first house is Aries. If that's the case, then the 10th house of Capricorn, or the Capricorn is my 10th house, and Pluto entering my 10th house means like the death/transformation of my career life, so to speak. So in that's why it matters, like, oh, Pluto is in this sign for this long, so it's like that death and transformation process is occurring for that particular area in your chart, based on your unique chart, because that's not something silly like your monthly horoscope or whatever, because that changes every 2 hours. So anyway, but if you think about it sort of more globally, Pluto being in Capricorn, Capricorn does have a lot to do with all the material side of life, the career, and it's ruled by Saturn, which is also sort of that very very serious, very very material plane, very worldly plane. And then you have this guy, Pluto, hanging out in Capricorn for this long. So then, of course, when you have Saturn suddenly comes back to his own house in Capricorn, and Saturn's like, what the frick? What is this god of death doing in my house? And then they have this like tussle. That's sort of when the whole corona thing started, was that time. It's important. I mean, and that's the thing. It's not like the planets make things happen, but the energy of that hostility between the energies of two incompatible beings, that makes a difference in our lives. And then every time, because this guy Pluto is hanging out in Capricorn for so long, right? 2008 to 2024, as and when these other planets come and go in that bigger sign, in that sign, but during that longer time span, things keep either getting better or worse, so to speak. So now, thinking about that, if you overlay the fact that, oh, now you have a Neptune in Pisces from 2012 to 2026, then you got to kind of start thinking about, what does Neptune mean? Neptune actually gets along very well with Pisces, so that's a harmonious thing. That means that there was something in the belief system and in creativity that there was some sort of shift that happened in that year 2012 that made it sort of okay. It kind of made things a little bit more favorable, if you will, for a brief amount of time, right? Until another planet gets in there and like mixes it up even further. Now, if you add that, add to the mix, then you have Saturn, from where was it? It was in Scorpio from 2012 to 2015. Again, Scorpio and Pisces, they get along with each other, so that's again a favorable aspect for those years. So it's all this backdrop, and then of course things shift, and then that's kind of when the shit hits the fan, right? When things shift. You know what, this video is pretty long, so I'm going to stop recording here, and then I will re-record as a part 2 so that it just doesn't take up too much time to upload. Okay, thanks for listening.